I never imagined I'd be writing about this. After 37 years of what I thought was a happy, steady marriage, my life fell apart in the most unimaginable way. If you're reading this, a warning. What I'm about to tell you might render you as speechless as it made me. Susan and I have been married since our early 20s. We built a life together, a home, two wonderful children, countless shared moments. I believed I knew her better than anyone. She was my anchor, my partner, the love of my life. Or at least that's what I thought. That's what makes this so hard to put into words. It began one evening after dinner. Nothing special, just one of those quiet nights you learn to treasure after decades together. Susan seemed a little off all day, but I didn't press her. I assumed she was tired or irritated about something small. After we finished eating, she insisted we sit in the living room. That was odd. Usually she'd be clearing the dishes while talking about her day or reminding me about some errand for the weekend. Instead, she sat across from me, twisting her fingers together. "Michael," she began, her voice low and strained, "I need to talk to you, right now." My stomach dropped. Her tone wasn't casual. It felt serious. I tried to keep my composure, pushing down the growing dread. "What is it?" I asked, leaning forward. She paused, looking down at her lap before finally meeting my eyes. "There's something I have to tell you. Something I've kept from you for a long time." That threw me. Susan wasn't a secretive type. At least I didn't think she was. We'd always prided ourselves on honesty. What could she be hiding after all these years? "You're scaring me," I said, trying to force a laugh though my heart was pounding. "What's going on?" She inhaled sharply and looked away as if she couldn't bear to look at me when she spoke the next words. "Do you remember our old neighbor James?" she asked. I blinked, surprised by the sudden mention of someone from our distant past. James had lived next door when we first moved into this house. Friendly, polite, always smiling, but I hadn't thought about him in years. "Yeah, I remember him," I said slowly. "What about him?" Susan's hands trembled as she gripped them together. Her voice quivered. "There's something I never told you about him." A sick feeling settled in my stomach. The room seemed to quiet around us. I stared at her, waiting, and then she said it. "Back then, when you were working those long hours, James and we had an affair." Those words detonated in my ears like thunder. At first, I thought I'd misheard. I shook my head, trying to clear the sudden fog in my mind. "What?" I managed, my voice barely a whisper. Susan's eyes filled with tears, but this time she didn't look away. "I'm so sorry, Michael," she said. "It happened a long time ago, and I regretted it every day, but I can't keep it from you any longer." I sat frozen. My thoughts scrambled but formed nothing coherent. An affair with James, decades ago? How could she have kept this from me for so long? And why bring it up now? I wanted to shout, demanded explanations, but I only sat there, stunned, as the life I'd built felt like it was collapsing around me. And that, as it turned out, was only the beginning. Her confession echoed. After 37 years of marriage, this was the night she chose to confess. Decades of trust, loyalty, and love felt shattered in an instant. My body went numb while my mind raced with questions I couldn't yet phrase. Finally, I broke the silence. My voice sounded cold and unfamiliar to me. "Why now, Susan? Why tell me this after all these years? What made you think I needed to know tonight?" She wiped at her cheeks, her hands trembling. "I couldn't keep it in anymore, Michael. It's eating me alive. You deserve the truth. I couldn't live with the guilt." Guilt, that was what this was about. Not for me, but for her. It felt like she was confessing to unburden herself, not out of respect or love for me. What about the weight she just dropped on me? I felt anger well up. I stood and couldn't remain seated. I paced, clenching and unclenching my fists, trying to hold my emotions in. Why had she done it? How long did it last? Did anyone else know? The question that pushed hardest to the front of my mind was simple. "Did you love him?" She flinched as if I'd struck her. "No, Michael," she said quickly. "I didn't love him. It was a mistake. I was lonely and you were working so much. It wasn't love. It was stupid and selfish." I turned toward her, anger rising. "A mistake? You don't just accidentally fall into another person's bed. Susan, don't call it a mistake. You made a choice." Her tears fell freely, but they didn't move me. For once I wasn't interested in her feelings. I wanted facts. "How long did it last?" I demanded. She looked at the floor. "A few months," she admitted quietly. "A few months," I repeated, incredulous. "And all that time you came home to me, looked me in the eye, and pretended everything was fine?" She nodded, sobs choking her words. "I hated myself for it, Michael. I really did. After it ended, I swore I'd never hurt you like that again. I've been faithful ever since, I promise." But promises in that moment meant nothing. The trust we built over nearly 40 years fell hollowed out. I needed to escape. The walls of the living room closed in. I grabbed my coat and headed for the door. "Where are you going?" Susan asked, panic in her voice. "I don't know," I said flatly. "I can't be here right now." I walked into the cold night with no destination. My feet carried me through familiar streets, while memories flooded my mind. The day we bought the house, how we poured ourselves into making ours, the nights we stayed up dreaming, her wedding day look, all of it now questioned. My aimless route brought me to the park, where we used to take the kids. The swings creaked, and the empty benches looked abandoned beneath the streetlights. I sat, burying my face in my hands, overwhelmed. How do you process something like this? How do you begin? My phone buzzed. Susan's name flashed. I ignored it first, but the call came again, and I answered, bitterness in my voice. What do you want? I asked. Her voice trembled. Please come home, Michael. We need to talk. I wanted to tell her that talking wouldn't fix this, but a part of me, maybe the part that still loved her, wanted answers. I needed to know why she did it, and why telling me now would make anything better. Fine, I said and ended the call. When I walked back, I felt like I was heading into battle. By the time I re-entered the house, the cold hadn't calmed the storm inside me. Susan sat in the living room, eyes swollen and raw. She looked like someone I no longer recognized. I'm here, I said, my tone sharper than intended. Talk. She flinched but nodded. Michael, I know I've hurt you. I can't take back what I did, but I want to explain. Explain. I interrupted, my voice rising. Explain how you chose to betray me while I was working my ass off to provide for our family. Explain why you lied to my face for decades. Her tears began again, but I wouldn't be swayed. I sat opposite her, waiting for anything that could make sense of this. I was lonely, she said at last, voice trembling. You were always working late. I felt invisible, like I didn't matter. And James, he noticed me. I shook my head in disgust. So not getting enough attention led you to sleep with a neighbor? I asked. It wasn't like that, she protested. It wasn't planned. It just happened. You keep saying it just happened. I mocked. Mistakes don't last for months. That was a choice, a series of choices. Don't insult me by pretending otherwise. She was silent, head bowed. For a moment, I thought she might admit that I was right and offer no excuse. But then she said something that made my stomach drop further. I ended it because I discovered he was seeing someone else, she whispered. I felt like the air left my lungs. She looked up, pale. James wasn't faithful either. I thought he meant something to me. But I realized now I was just another fling. That's why I stopped. The irony stung. Not only had she cheated, but she'd ended the affair not out of remorse for me, but because the other man had moved on. So, let me get this straight, I said, voice trembling with fury. You didn't stop because it was wrong. You stopped because he left you for someone else. Do you know how that sounds? She buried her face in her hands, sobbing uncontrollably. I was stupid, Michael. Selfish. I ruined everything. Her confession didn't ease anything. It made me angrier. How many years had I defended what I thought was a perfect marriage, only to learn it rested on lies? How many times had I trusted her while she carried the secret? I gave you everything, I said, voice breaking. My loyalty, my love, my whole life. This is how you repay me. I'm so sorry, she whispered. I'll do anything to make this right. But how do you repair something like this? There's no undoing the betrayal. The trust we had was gone, replaced by a hollow I didn't know how to fill. I don't even know who you are anymore, I said, standing. And honestly, I don't know if I want to. Please, Michael, she begged, reaching for me. Don't walk away. We can fix this. Counseling. I laughed, bitter. You think sitting with a stranger will erase what you did? This isn't a rough patch. This is betrayal. I turned away and climbed the stairs. I couldn't bear to look at her. Every second with her felt like a knife twisting in my chest. Where are you going? She called, voice trembling. To bed, I said flatly. Tomorrow I'll figure out what the hell I'm supposed to do next. Her sobs followed me up, but for the first time in my life, I didn't care about them. The next morning, I woke to an eerie quiet. Susan wasn't in the bedroom, and for a blissful moment, I forgot the night before. That illusion vanished when I saw her at the kitchen table, eyes puffy and red. Morning, she said, her voice hoarse. I said nothing, poured coffee, and sat at the far end of the table as if distance could protect me. Michael, please, we need to talk, she pleaded. I sighed, took a sip, and set the mug down. Fine, talk. She took a steadying breath. I know I can't undo what I did, but I want to try to make it right. I'll do whatever it takes. I love you, Michael. Her words sounded hollow. Love? After what she'd done, how could she claim it? You don't get to throw that word around. I said coldly. She flinched but didn't fight me. Instead, she reached into her pocket and slid a folded piece of paper across the table. It was a handwritten letter from James. What's this? I asked. He sent it to me before he moved away, she said. I never told you about it, but maybe it will help you understand. I hesitated, then unfolded it. The note was brief and, in a way, painfully small for someone that had wrecked me. Dear Susan, thank you for the time we shared. I know what we had wasn't right, and we both carry that guilt. You're a wonderful woman, but I can't stay. I've met someone and have to move on. I hope you find a way to move on too. Take care, James. I stared at the paper for what felt like forever, hands shaking as I refolded. Anger, betrayal, and a hard kind of sadness tangled inside me. Maybe grief for the person I thought Susan was. That's it. I asked flatly. That's the man you threw away our marriage for. Someone who couldn't even be bothered to apologize properly. She looked down, unable to meet my eyes. I wasn't thinking straight, Michael. I was vulnerable. I let myself believe he cared. You believed he cared? I repeated, voice rising. What about me? Did you ever think about me, or was I just an afterthought? She looked up with tears streaming. I thought about you every day. That's why I ended it. I realized what I'd done, and I couldn't stand the thought of losing you. You ended it because he left you. I snapped. Don't rewrite history. The only reason you stopped was because he moved on. Don't pretend you did it to save our marriage. Her face crumpled. She buried her head and sobbed. Her tears didn't move me. I sat by the lake for a long time, watching the still water as the sun climbed. The peaceful scene felt cruel against the turmoil inside me. Every memory of our 37 years replayed, now stained with suspicion. Were there other secrets? Was James the only one? The idea churned my stomach. How do you process that timeline? Decades believing in a certain life, and suddenly realizing part of it was untrue. I thought of the early days. How young we'd been. How full of hope, the sparkle in Susan's eyes on our wedding day. I'd been sure she was my soulmate, someone who would never hurt me. Now she'd become the source of my deepest pain. I wondered whether she had truly been happy with me, or had stayed out of obligation, guilt, or fear of being alone. Could I forgive her? The word forgiveness felt heavy and almost impossible. Forgiving would mean letting go of my anger and pain, but wasn't forgiveness also supposed to free me from carrying the hurt? It sounded good in theory, but felt like a betrayal of myself in practice. A memory struck, a late night from years ago during the time she must have been with James. I remembered coming home exhausted from a long shift. Susan was unusually cheerful, greeting me with a warm meal and a warm smile. At the time, I took it as her being loving and devoted. Now I wondered if she'd been overcompensating, trying to conceal guilt. The questions tumbled on. Answers felt unreachable. I was trapped, replaying our marriage through this new, painful filter. Eventually, I got up and returned to the car. I didn't feel any better, barely anything at all, but I knew I couldn't sit there forever. I had to face her again and decide what came next. The drive home was quiet. The engine's hum was the only sound. My mind buzzed, but I focused on the road, telling myself I'd take this one step at a time, even though I had no idea what the next step would be. When I came back inside the house, the atmosphere was heavy, almost suffocating. Susan remained on the couch, knees pulled to her chest. She looked up as I entered, eyes mixing hope and fear. "Michael," she whispered, "I'm glad you're back. I was so scared you wouldn't come." I didn't reply at once. I took off my coat and sat in the armchair across from her, keeping deliberate distance. "I came back," I said finally, "but I don't know if I'm staying." Her face crumpled and fresh tears flowed. "Please, Michael, don't say that. I know I hurt you, but give me a chance to make it right." I let out a bitter laugh. "Make it right? How? Can you undo the affair? Erase the years of lies? Unless you figured out how to rewind time, I don't see how you can make this right." She flinched, and I felt no regret. She needed to understand the damage. "I don't expect you to forgive me overnight," she said, voice shaking. "I just want a chance to prove I still love you. Do you even hear yourself?" I asked, shaking my head. "You claim you love me while sneaking around with another man. How does that make sense?" She had no answer. She sat and sobbed quietly while I stared, heavy with grief and anger. For a moment, I almost felt sorry for her, but the memory of James's cold, impersonal letter wiped away any sympathy. "I need time," I said at last, breaking the silence. "I can't decide anything right now. I need to think." "Take all the time you need," she said desperately. "I'll do whatever it takes. Just please don't leave me." I didn't respond. I stood and left the room, leaving her alone with her guilt. Upstairs, I sat on the edge of the bed we'd shared for so many years and stared at the floor. The future was unknown, but one thing was clear. Our marriage would never be the same. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay awake replaying the day's events while Susan stayed downstairs and the silence stretched between us like a wall. I didn't know whether we could rebuild what was broken, or even whether it was worth trying. I knew I couldn't keep living in a marriage saturated with pain and resentment. As dawn's first light seeped through the curtains, I made a choice. I needed to take control of my life again, whether that meant fighting for our marriage or walking away for good. I wasn't sure which, but I resolved to move forward. I got out of bed and packed a bag, a few clothes and essentials. Not much. Downstairs, Susan sat awake at the kitchen table with a cup of untouched coffee. "Michael," she said tentatively, "what are you doing?" "I need space," I said simply. "I'm going to stay at a hotel for a few days. I need to think." Her face crumpled, but she said nothing. "I understand," she whispered. "Please come back. I'll be here waiting." I didn't answer. I picked up my bag and left the house, unsure what the future held, but determined to find some peace. whether that peace was with her or without her.